Hey guys, I'm Ben. I'm one of the website developers and one of the owners at Design Townsville. Today I'm just going to give you a very quick run through of the life cycle or the entire process from start to finish that you can expect if you're looking to get a website built by a website agency. So this doesn't really apply to those of us who want to build it ourselves. If that's you, that's awesome, but this video is not for you. For anyone that wants to use a website agency such as us, that's where this video comes in. So the whole life cycle of a website obviously has a lot of different complexities to it. So people come to us and they're often totally overwhelmed and they don't know where to begin. So what we do is try and step them through this process that I'm going to run you through now to try and make that a little bit more clear, so that now and in the future you don't come back to us or your other website agency and have, you know, a bad taste in your mouth about the experience, because there are a lot of things that go into a website, and especially if you want to rank your website, the concept of search engine optimization, or SEO, there's a lot of moving parts to that you need to understand as a business owner. So number one, obviously it starts with your domain name. So, you know, as the business owner, you may already have an idea of what you want your domain name to be. That's fine, that's good, it's great to have a bit of direction, but in our experience it's also often worthwhile discussing that with the website agency, because in the future, if you want to rank your website, in other words, you know, you want, let's say you're a painter and you're in North Queensland, you want somebody to go onto Google, type in painter North Queensland, and you might want to appear. Now if that is you, if you are looking to get more sales through the website, which is the majority of our customers, then you do need to focus on SEO, okay, which is just a fancy way of saying the website is Google friendly. Now there's no guarantees with this, as is the same with any SEO agency or web agency. There is no guarantee that you will get results. So what we do is we get all of the variables or ranking factors, they're called. We tick all the boxes and we give it to Google. What it does with that is up to it. It's up to Google, but we do our best to give it what it wants. Now, number one is a domain name, and the decision on a domain name can be a little bit complex, but just stick with the basics. It should have at least part of your keyword. Don't make it a long tail keyword, so don't make it too complicated, but your domain name should have some keywords in it. Our business name, WDT, or Web Design Townsville, is the word Townsville is in our URL, which is townsvilleblog.com.au. So with that in mind, if you're a painter, you should have painting, you should have decorating, or something like that in your domain name, because that will help Google to categorize you and match your website with somebody that's looking for a painter and decorator. So if you're a painter and decorator, you know, don't have jbt.com.au as your domain name. It's not as ideal as if you had, for example, John's Painting and Decorating Queensland.com.au or paintingqueensland.com.au. If you come to us before you've even done any of this work, we can actually do a historical lookup, and we can find websites that have previously been used by a business. So, you know, maybe there's a painter in Queensland who had a business for 25 years and he's now retired. That domain name might be available. We can take that, and that's already done a lot of work. It's already been seen by Google, liked by Google, it's got history. We can put content onto that website, obviously rebrand it, put your logo on there, etc. But that's going to give you a better step in the right direction for if you want SEO in the long run. Remember that SEO is not a quick thing. You're not going to get a phone call next week by saying, yes, Ben, I want SEO. It is a long-term strategy. Maybe we're talking 6 months, 12 months, potentially more. So that's number one, is a domain name. Once you've got a domain name, then it obviously becomes the question of building the website. We don't use WordPress out of a personal choice because typically WordPress is quite a it's a very big, beastie machine that requires a lot of maintenance that you as the customer or the business owner will be paying for. It requires security checks constantly because, you know, if there's a vulnerability to a website, if a website agency hits the news because they've been hacked, you can guarantee it's because of WordPress. I'm not putting WordPress down, it certainly has its space in the market. For the majority of small, medium-sized businesses, in our opinion, don't recommend it. So with that in mind, we use a website builder to build you a nice, really aesthetic website that looks amazing, but it goes beyond that. It's not just the look of the website. This then talks to the point of on-page SEO, as it's called, which is nothing more than making sure everything is where it's meant to be. So, you know, sometimes people who build their own website, you know, there's the first thing you see is a big picture on the page, and then you scroll down and there's the heading, and then you keep scrolling, there's another picture, and then you scroll down and there's some text, and that's just been put there because they think it looks good. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not what Google prefers. Google prefers a very strict structure that all website agencies know. So, you know, very first banner should be what's called an H1 title. You should then have multiple H2 subheadings. Your font should be of a certain size, and it goes on and on and on. That concept of on-page SEO needs to be followed. So if you are going to build your website yourself, no worries, but you do need to understand that there are several hundred ranking factors that Google takes into account. You need to understand what they are so you can build a website that Google will reward. Okay, so we've done the on-page SEO, the website looks amazing, titles where it's meant to be, subheadings are where they're meant to be, pictures are the right format. So no, we're not talking about .jpeg, we're not talking about InDesign files, we're not talking about bitmaps, we're not talking about PNGs, we're talking about what are called next-gen image formats. And a next-gen image format is WebP, JPEG 2000, and these are very specific formats that we would do if we were building your website. So once you've then done all of those on-page SEO things that we're talking about, the next step is then to understand who your competitors are. So this also feeds into the building of your website, because once you understand your competition, you know what you're up against. If you're a painter, potentially Painters Queensland is massive. You may have people paying $50 per click. That's probably a bit exaggerated. Let's be realistic. Let's say it's $20 per click for Google advertising to be on page 1 for that keyword. Painters Queensland, for example. So you're better off focusing on what are called long tail keywords, which is, say, website design decorating North Queensland. That's quite long, and you might find that only 50 people per month are actually searching for that. But you can at least know that people who are searching for that are finding your website. Whereas for those big, expensive, massive competition keywords like Painter Queensland, there's no point of even going for them. And most SEO agencies will all have the same opinion on that. You don't go for those massive dominated keywords that cost ridiculous money. You're aiming for a huge piece of a huge pie, and you'll end up with nothing. What's better off is to go for a small piece of a small pie, and you do that a lot. So I'm not saying you go for one long tail keyword, I'm saying you go for dozens over the course of a couple of years. Again, SEO is not an instant win. So you've got your keywords, and we don't guess what they are, we do research to find out what's best. So by that, you know, you don't just think, okay, this is probably what people search, you do research on it. When I say you, if you come to us, we do the research for you. It's all included as part of our SEO plans. So we then identify the keywords we should be targeting, and then it becomes a case of writing content for them. So this is where there's a collaborative element to our relationship between yourself and the website agency. You don't have to do any of this, but of course, going back to what we said before, where research is key and you need to know what your competition is doing, most industries you'll find the first page on Google, no one has below 100 web pages. So, you know, when we're talking over 100 web pages, a lot of that is this long tail keywords with a lot of content behind it. So if you're a painter and you need 100 pages of content, you're then paying for a website agency or an SEO agency. You're paying them for their time. You know, so what would you get for, let's say, $50 an hour? You're going to get one blog. Okay, so suddenly you're looking at a pretty steep price tag when you start building hundreds of web pages. For that reason, there is a lot of wins that you can make as a business owner to write blogs. Okay, so what we're talking about is 1,200 word articles, lots of them, not just verbal diarrhea. You actually need to put some effort into this. But there are ways that you can make this quick and easy. It doesn't mean that, okay, I need a 1,200 word article, I need to spend my entire week not do anything else but focus on articles. There's a lot of other things you can do. But number one, you need to get that content up. It's absolutely imperative you get the content written. You can then get somebody on Gumtree to write it for you if you want, get a uni student to write it. Maybe you've got friends, family that, you know, you could pay $20 for an article, or get your grandson or your kids to write it for you. There's a lot of things you can do like that, but you do need content. Very important. Now that you've got the content written, we do what's called syndication, where we then, if you were to use us, I'm talking about, we would then take those articles, whether we've written them or you have, we put those into our custom built engine that then scatters that across different social media channels and different websites that we own. And that then, and that might seem a bit strange, like why would I write a blog and then scatter it everywhere? Remember that a blog is not necessarily going to be read by your customers. So don't think, okay, well, what are the odds that I'm going to write this 1,200 words and a single person is ever going to find it online? They probably won't. The reality is they probably won't. Those 100 pages I'm talking about from your competition, guaranteed they barely get read. Obviously it's ideal if they did, but the content is there for Google. Google will read it, and that's why you need to write it. So let's say we've got all of those blog articles. We then syndicate that across different social media channels and other websites that we own, websites we'll set up for yourself. And over time, what happens is Google then sees other links from other places in the world pointing back at your website. So a link from another website pointing at yours is what we call a backlink. And a backlink, there's million-dollar businesses that only do that. They focus on backlinks and nothing else, because it is what a lot of SEO agencies believe is the #1 ranking factor. And what I mean by that is nothing else matters in their eyes but backlinks. So it's important to not get absorbed in this, but it's important as a business owner to be familiar with the concept. You do need to know that is something you need to focus on. So backlinks, you can buy them, don't recommend that option, but doing these ideas like syndication, making sure you've got yourself set up in Yellow Pages, all the other big business directories out there like Yelp, you want to get your URL into as many websites as you can. There's obviously other outreach strategies, so you can go to other businesses and sell your services to them, so that in the hope that they will put your content on their website. You can do trade-offs where, you know, I'll post your content if you post mine. There's a lot of different ways you can get links pointing back to your website. And again, this is something that takes time. You know, those front-running web pages would have hundreds, potentially thousands, especially for really competitive markets like web design. A web design agency will have 30,000 backlinks. Some have over 1 million. So that's something, again, you need to be mindful of, and it's something we will work towards. So you've now got your domain name, you've got your website built with on-page SEO, you've got your content. We know what we're targeting because we're targeting specific keywords. We're not just building content for the sake of content. And now we're starting to get backlinks, or at least we understand that backlinks are important. We've syndicated our content around other websites that point back to us. Eventually Google's going to start discovering this content, these backlinks. Over time, Google will start to reward that, and it'll start to move you up in the search results. So the reality to SEO is it's nothing more complicated than that. There are 150 or 190 other ranking factors, but the ones I just mentioned are the most important ones. So if you're embarking on a website, you're looking to get a website done, it's important to understand what goes into it. Obviously what I just said then is a lot of work, and we or your website agency will help you towards that. That's what's required. Let's do it.